broadcast of It's Time with Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here is Reverend Martin.
Thank you, Dr. Blackwell. And let me say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, but certainly never good night, and definitely never, ever goodbye. I hate goodbyes from childhood. It was a very traumatic time for me. But that's neither here. I say hello and how are you? And welcome to another offering entitled It's Time. And what is it time for? It is time for justice, and that must mean social justice. And social justice must always look at our social structure in which each human being is forced to live, or to be born, to live, to grow, to work, and to raise your family, and then age, and then, of course, transition into the next life, the better life, as we say it. In case I spoke too quickly, I'm the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles, and we're worshiping with our sister church who opened up their doors and welcomed us in and invited us in and said, y'all come on in and worship with us. We serve one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God, the Father of us all, who's in us all. And the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church, pastored by my good friend, the Reverend Dr. Della F. Hollandis, has been hospitable and magnanimous. Now we have two churches and one congregation worshiping in that location. We have one service, and you're welcome to come, because the outpouring of the Holy Spirit knows no bounds and is no respecter of person. Yes, I'm Baptist, and Dr. Hollandis is Pentecostal. It's, what was his name that made that record that we all love? Never mind. He says when the Baptist-Costalists and the Pentecostalists get together, there's always going to be a great shouting in the camp. And so we are continuing to pursue that oneness that the Spirit spoke about and actually is encouraging us all to come into, till we all become one. Yes. And so we thank God for your viewing of this broadcast, this podcast that is being put out over the airways of KTYM Media. And we are pressing on and looking forward to much improvement and much growth and much better times going ahead. When we spoke of the social structure, of course, we recognize that the social structure must always involve your environment, because your environment is far more important than most of us give our environment credit for, until it is too late, until it smacks us in the back of the head. But your environment is crucial and necessary that you understand it, because you got to live in it. You got to live, you got to thrive, you got to prosper, you got to exist, and all of those. You got to be educated, you got to grow, and all of the things that are common to humanity and humankind happen within your social structure. Some parts of your social structure are hostile to you. There's sometimes great animus directed against you, of which you may be unaware, but you must make yourself aware of the things that are maybe an obstacle or a hazard to your health, yes, your very livelihood, yes, that you may not always have full control over, but you need to be able to be aware that those hazards are there, so that if it be possible, you can what? Dodge those hazards. And one of the hazards that we constantly have found to have to confront is, of course, the political structure. And in that political structure are the private peaks, perks, idiosyncrasies, and the like of other people who, because of their prior position, so to speak, or their prior arrival in that environment in which you find yourself living, they may have set some laws or policies that codify their personal prejudices, their personal bigotries. And if those personal prejudices and personal bigotries are codified in public policy, then that becomes a real hazard to you. Of course, if you have grown up and you are now grown in this country of the United States of America, you're very much aware of the rancid bread of race and racism that the white superiority proponents have force-fed through our educational system and through all other venues and mediums that they have had control of, whether it was the print, whether that includes newspapers and books and the like type of media. That would, of course, you can't leave out billboards, advertisements, and all of that push or propose or perpetuate or propound the superiority of one group of people over another group of people. And one of the great discoveries in our present biological structure is, of course, that there's no such thing as race occurring in nature. Nature has no race. There's no race. The Bible even tells you that. Out of one blood, God made all men for to dwell upon the face of the earth. But then when you had these bigots and these, lack of a better word, these haters, they developed the concept as a social construct and impose that perception upon society. Psychology teaches that if a group or a person can impose their perception upon reality, then that perception becomes reality, whether it is actually true or not. If it is imposed and it is accepted or it is forced, then that prevailing perception becomes the reality. And as all psychologists say, your perception is your reality. It may be a false perception. It may be an erroneous perception. It may be a perception based on a fallacy. But if that is what you have come to believe, that it is real, if you believe Santa Claus is real, or if you believe the Easter Bunny of MacArthur Park is real, or you believe that Superman is real, or if you believe that you can't win because you've been told over and over that you can't win, that perception becomes reality, even though it remains a falsehood, a myth. But aren't we still dealing with Santa Claus at this very hour? Aren't we still teaching the kids to color Easter eggs for the Easter Bunny? All of us knowing full well that rabbits don't lay eggs. But let me not digress. I merely meant to give an example of how a myth, a perception, can be imposed and become a reality. And so it is with the concepts in education. We really got to get busy correcting a lot of the miseducation of the public in America. Notice how I said that, the miseducation of the public in America, because not only were the so-called black people miseducated, but also the so-called white people were miseducated, keeping in mind that this whiteness and this blackness is a social construct. But as it relates to axiology, we have imposed a value on blackness of being inferior, and we have imposed a value upon whiteness of being superior. And so we are all enmeshed and involved in this matrix, and we therefore have to make the necessary correction on the fly. And a lot of the people that are benefiting from things as they are, quite naturally are going to do what? Push back. Wait a minute, brother. We've been doing this for 300, 400 years. You can't come and tell us we're wrong. But yet, if the truth shall make you free, as Jesus told the disciples, then you must know the truth. You must know the truth. Somebody's got to tell the two-ton elephant that that little pin stuck in the ground cannot hold him. All you got to do is pull against it and go on about his business. And so it is in life, and that is why there is such pushback all over this country about dealing with the immediate, well, not the immediate, but dealing with the consequences of the effects of 250 years of unrequited toil, which we call, which is and which was and remains the most bitter form of slavery ever practiced in the world. Chattel slavery, where a person became a portable property for the person, another person. Well, in other words, a person can own another person as though they were their own personal, movable, portable piece of property. To the extent that they could do with their property what they would, they could sell it, they could what? Work it, they could toss it to the side, they could inflict punishment and feed it or that property or not feed that property, and no man felt that he had a twinge of morality to say that that was wrong. Not the great Christian mystics that were upon the face of this United States, 13 colonies and the like during that time. Most of them were what? Slaveholders. 10 of the first 12 presidents of the United States, what? Slaveholders. 41 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence, slaveholders. And so America has involved itself in cognitive dissonance, let us be nice, not to just say the big lie, from its inception. And one may come to the conclusion that America never intended to do right, and never intended for there to be justice and freedom and a better way of life for all. As they stated in the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are have certain inalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So then, if that is the moral ideal, it is certainly an aspiration that has yet to be attained. We are not yet what we ought to be as the United States of America. We're united in mischief. We are united in racism, but we are not united in goodwill. And so these things we have to confront in the social structure. Way back, another example I have laid out here before me in the city of Manhattan Beach, which is in LA County, which is just a few miles down the road from this studio. There's a beautiful, elegant community there. I believe there's only about 35,000 inhabitants, very affluent, one of the high-priced zip codes in the country. And for most of its latter existence, it was incorporated in 1912. I said 1912, and they took away the last black person's property in 1924, although the battle dragged on for another 5 years. Ultimately, all black people living in Manhattan Beach had their property taken away by eminent domain, and they were not allowed to buy anywhere in Manhattan Beach, and were forced, therefore, to leave the area because of the influence of the Ku Klux Klan, because of the desire on the part of the real estate market, real estate agents, real estate brokers, to claim that valuable land that the black people at that time were known primarily as Negro or colored, that was valuable land. And they didn't want what they call a Negro invasion. Keep in mind that the principal people that we're going to be talking about, Charles and Willa Bruce, purchased that property before the city was incorporated. And the city was incorporated in around about 1912, but the Bruces had already purchased that property for between 26th and 27th Street for the princely sum of $1,226. That's a lot of money back in the day. And Mr. Bruce, he worked on the railroad. He was a Pullman porter. And Willa, his wife, she stayed there and developed the property. And of course, she had to be industrious, she had to be nimble, had to be thoughtful, had to think outside of the box. And so she had a what they call a portable cottage at first, and she was selling soda pop and lunch, and it was running swimming trunks and bathing suits and the like. And after a while, they were able to put up a dance hall and a cafe and a hotel, lodgings in that area. Not a fancy hotel, quite naturally, but bungalows where people could come and spend the weekend. Okay? And they had the work ethic, and they were determined to succeed, and they were not depending on anybody to help them. They were putting themselves up by their own bootstrap. But their social structure looked at their development with a dim view. The social structure around them, the political society in which they lived, took a hostile view of the development of Bruce's Beach. You don't hear me? And so when the city fathers could not buy the property out from under the Bruces, because the Bruces would not sell, and because of the fact that there was very few beach areas where black people could go. I remember growing up in Galveston, and you could only go in the water when you got to the beach. You had to go way some 10 miles down, what they call the down beach, and you go behind this petition and get on the down beach. Now you can get in the same Gulf of Mexico and that the white folks up on the front part were stiffing and dipping their toes and peeing in. And you could get in that same water, but you had to do it way down 10 miles further down. Okay? And long story short, a Mr. George Lindsay, let's see, make sure I get that name right, became a member of the city council, and he, along with other conspirators, began to study how to get the land away from Charles and Willa Bruce. Mind you, that Charles and Willa Bruce had bought that land legally, and They were paying for that land, but yet somebody else did not want them to have the land and be there. And your enemy is always plotting. This guy's name was George Lindsay, and he was the primary instigator and proponent, according to a wonderful book written by Robert Brigham, who grew up in Manhattan Beach during that period of time. And then after the land was condemned or eminent domain had taken it over, and no park was ever built. And so he made inquiry, and when he went to Fresno State, that was his thesis: land ownership and occupancy by Negroes in Manhattan Beach. And because of he writing this thesis about his community that he grew up in, and why it was that there was so much vacant land between 26th and 27th Street, we have the account and the record. Of course, the city council records are even more incriminating when you have the city councilman Frank Doherty confessing years later that the reason why they used eminent domain to take the Bruce's property was because they did not want Negroes to be in Manhattan Beach. But of course they didn't want to codify that in law. That's why I said you got to watch your social structure, that what's going on around you. And you be saying, well, I don't get involved in politics, but politics is very much involved in you. And you cannot live in this world without being politically active to the point of becoming politically astute. And I was looking for the statement of Mr. Doherty, spelled Doherty. I don't see it right here in front of me, but in essence, what Mr. Doherty said was that he felt bad years later at what they had done to take the Bruce's property away from them. He said because they were Americans just like we were. This is Mr. Doherty stating that, and he always about having been involved in such a thing. But then the signers of the Constitution felt bad about slavery, but they signed it and they codified slavery. And they said even though they wanted slavery to go away, yet they said they made a contract. And Thurgood Marshall called it a constitutional contradiction, saying that a human being was 3/5 because of the color of his skin. And as a result of that bargain, there's his name, then we had to endure all that we are yet enduring, which included the Civil War, Jim Crow, and all the segregation and all the miseducation that all of us have been subjected to. Okay, it says here, Mr. Frank Doherty. Okay. Here's what Doherty was quoted as saying in one of the defunct papers, but he says, I support an apology that doesn't bind. Okay, this is Mr. Napolitano. Let me see. Let's read the apology. It says, I do support an apology for the actions taken by the city, as described by Frank Doherty. And no, I'm not some far-left pinko commie apologist for white snowflakes trying to get ahead in politics. Oh, here's Mr. Doherty's statement up here. Those Negroes had as much right to be here as we did. This is Frank Dougherty, who was on the city council when the eminent domain vote was taken. He says, I always felt that it was a mean trick to make them leave their home, but it was the only way out. Being a member of the board, remember Rhino Neva wrote that groups are more naughty than individuals. I mean, that what a person would not do personally by themselves, when they get with a group, oh, you better look out. Groups are always more naughty than individuals. Now, this man says, years later, I always thought, this is Frank Dougherty is his name, that was the meanest thing I ever did, but I suppose I had to, and always thought the same way about it. I had to participate or give up Manhattan Beach. Now, and so the point was to drive all black people out of Manhattan Beach, which they effectively did. You didn't get a black person on the Manhattan Beach City Council until 2006. Mind you, the last Negro left Manhattan Beach, it banned in 1929. And from 1929 up until this 21st century, it has taken that long to get one Negro, one black person on the Manhattan Beach City Council. But kudos to that one black person that got on the city council. The time he got on there, he started this project to reclaim Bruce's Beach and to name the land, the park that was never, rename it in its original name, Bruce's Beach, and then to try to find the remaining descendants of Charles and Willa Bruce, and begin the negotiations to try to return that property into the hands of that family. So kudos to Mr. Mitchell Ward, who was the first elected black councilman in the city of Manhattan Beach. What am I getting at? What happened to Charles and Willa Bruce happened all over the country. The social structure, society, the largest society in which you are forced to live, which you are born, and which you are exist. And again, I tell you, you cannot walk around and say, I ain't got nothing to do with politics, because politics got everything to do with you, including what street you living on, the name of that street, the store you shop at, what the prices are on the goods in that store. You cannot afford not to be politically alert and awake and aware and involved. And your voting is good, but you must not stop there. You got to know these people that are on these various councils and boards of supervisors and legislators. Thank God for Stephen Bradford taking the bill to transfer the ownership of the Bruce's Beach from the state and return it to the county, and then to do the legwork to get the legalese that would allow the state to allow the county of Los Angeles, which has now got to work on the project, to go through the machination, the political leisure domain, all of that dotting the I's and crossing the T's that will allow the county to finally give that land back to the Bruce family. See, oh, what wells we weave. First we study to deceive. Spoken by Shakespeare. I still remember some of my old Shakespearean language. All right. And so you can see from these brief remarks and this brief look at just one picture. And don't forget Wall Street, Black Wall Street, 1921, right there in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Remember, these people out here in California were not in Oklahoma. They were here in California. And just like the people there in Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma, had their land taken away from them, the people here in Manhattan Beach, California, land of milk and honey, had their land taken away from them. And so what is the difference? And so as we wrap up, we want to encourage you, my brothers and my sisters, to stay involved. I really didn't say that much, but, I got the point over. And to my brothers and sisters that are working on these thankless jobs, we want to thank you for the job that you're doing, because if you don't do that job, the whole nation will stop. But I pray that they will not only boost your wages and give you a decent salary, decent benefits, so that if you get injured or hurt or your child gets a cold, some of you have a doctor to go to, but that also, if they don't want to pay you, that you will be able to look at them in the face and say, I'll take this job and shove it and stop working for them. Thank you, Doc. We out of here.